Thank you for choosing to watch this video. Today I'll be tying a olive sedge pupa, or caddis pupa. Start by mounting your hook in the vise. For this fly I'm using one of Fulling Mill's Boss Grub hooks in a size 14. Catch on your thread. This is Semperfli's classic wax thread in an 8-knot. I'm using a slightly heavier thread than I normally do because I want to build a bit of shape in the underbody. For the body of this fly we're using some of Fulling Mill's excellent Nymph-Rap. This is a micro in translucent natural. It lets the underbody colour show through quite nicely, so it gives you plenty of room to experiment when tying variations of this pattern. Catching your body material back down to where you want the body to start, which is quite well round the bend of the hook. Then I'll tidy up the tie end point and just bind down all the waist end of the Nymph-Rap. I want this fly to have quite a bulbous rear end to the body. To achieve this I'll lay down quite a few layers of thread wraps, but I still want to create a taper up into the thorax area and the end of the body. You can untwist the thread to help it lay flatter and help create a smooth underbody as you're working. The underbody doesn't need to be too bulky, but you want enough shape to help build the profile as you're winding the body material. Unwinding the thread again periodically as you do this to help flatten out the thread, and this will keep the underbody nice and smooth. That should just about be enough, and so start winding the body. For the first wrap I'll hold it under quite a bit of tension, but I quickly want to ease off that tension. Pulling this material tight makes it lie thinner, and I want it quite thick at the end of the body, but not so thick that it masks the underbody too much, if that makes sense. You want the underbody colour to shine through. As I progress up round the bend of the hook I'll start to pull more tension on the Nymph-Rap. This will, as you'll see, will keep the profile thinner and taper the body in towards the thorax area. Then, once you're happy with the body, catch in the Nymph-Rap with a couple of wraps of thread, holding it tight, secure in with another wrap or two, and a few locking turns in front, and trim away under tension, which should give you a nice clean tie-in point. Next we'll tie in the thorax colour, which for this fly is a bunch of Melanistic Pheasant tail. Select a generous bunch, pull it off the feather, and we'll trim away the tips so we've got a nice strong tie-in point. I'll actually want to take the thread a bit closer to the eye to catch in the pheasant tail, and that will allow me to make sure it's sitting cleanly on top of the hook as I bind it down towards the end of the body. Take your time and make sure you've caught the thorax cover right into the body. Maybe overlap it slightly just to make sure you're not going to leave any exposed tying thread underneath or behind the thorax cover when you pull it forward. Tidy up the tie-in point and take our thread back, and we'll now dub the thorax, which will be made using some of Fulling Mill's Nymph flash dub in light olive UV. This is actually a blend of Fulling Mill's Nymph body dubbing and tactical micro flash, which gives a nice sparkle and attraction to the fly. As with all dubbing, take your time, make sure you got it twisted nicely onto the thread, adding probably less than you think you need. You can always add more. Twisting the dubbing in the same direction. This is actually a nice easy dubbing to use. We want to build a reasonably chunky thorax for this fly, but we also want to make sure we leave space to tie in the hackle and catch in the thorax cover. So you do want to make sure you don't crowd the eye too much, which I think I may have got a bit close with this one, so don't be worried about taking it back a step or two, and make sure you're happy with how the thorax is sitting and that you've got space to finish the fly off neatly. For the hackle, to represent the legs on this fly, I'm using a dark speckled feather from a Partridge Rump. I'll catch in the tip with a couple of turns of thread and then fold back the tip and tie it in and create a nice neat tie-off point and somewhere I can land the thorax cover after I've wound the hackle. Isolate and pull away the tip and then wind your hackle. Try and fold the feather barbs back so they point backwards as you wind the feather. You do need to be a little bit careful because the tips of these feathers can be quite fragile and you don't want to snap them or drop your hackle pliers, as I just have. Reattach the hackle pliers, and again take your time with the first wrap of thread, making sure the feather's sitting nicely and you don't put too much pressure on it and snap the tip. So a couple of turns of hackle is probably plenty, if not more than enough for this fly. A single turn will give you a lighter dressing, so it's worth experimenting with how many turns of hackle you use on this one. Catch it in, bind back the waist end and then break away the stalk, holding your thread under tension to keep it nice and secure, and then we'll try and separate the hackle around the middle of the top of the fly so we can pull the thorax cover over without trapping too many of the hackle barbs. Then catch it in with a few turns of thread, trying not to go too far forward, then a walking turn in front of the pheasant tail fibres and then trim off the waist ends. You might want to do this in a couple of cuts to make sure you get it nice and neat, and then we just tidy up the tie-in point and form a nice neat head. Try and cover up all the waist ends of the pheasant tail fibres and then we'll whip finish the fly. 3-turn whip finish should be plenty. And that's the tying done. Trim away the thread and then I'll use a trim down toothbrush to make sure the hackle's sitting nicely and pull out some of the thorax dubbing. Then I'll apply some Solaris bone dry clear UV resin to the head of the fly just to finish it off and make sure it's nice and secure. You could of course just use your normal fly tying varnish. Take your time to make sure you've got all of the head nicely covered and avoid getting any of the resin or varnish into the hackle. Then set the resin with the UV lamp and that's the fly finished. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please like it and don't forget to subscribe to my channel to be kept up to date on any future videos. All comments and feedback are always welcome, and if there's any patterns you'd like to see me tie, please let me know.